On the 11th morning of her marriage, Isobel Wycliffe found a petition for nullity beside her untouched breakfast. Her husband stood at the other end of the table while a November rain scratched at the windows and told her that by spring, the law would declare she had never been his wife. The ink beneath his signature was still wet. This is a story of a woman condemned by a lie, a fortune she refused to misuse, and a proud man who had to lose every protection of his name before he understood the value of hers. The breakfast room at Hartleigh Abbey smelled of coal smoke, wet wool, and the bitter coffee Isobel had poured but could not lift to her lips. 11 days earlier, the same room had been crowded with white roses sent by tenants who had never expected their duke to marry the quiet daughter of a country physician. Now the roses had browned at the edges. Their fallen petals lay across the mantel like old bruises. Marcus Wycliffe, 7th Duke of Hartleigh, remained beside the door. Rain shone on the shoulders of his black riding coat. He had not removed his gloves. 2 other people had entered with him. His mother, Augusta, the Dowager Duchess, wore mourning silk, though no one in the family had died for 3 years. Beside her stood Mr. Silas Brough, the family solicitor, with a leather case tucked beneath one arm. Isobel looked again at the first line of the petition. In the court for divorce and matrimonial causes. She knew enough law to understand the words that followed. Marcus was not seeking a separation. He was asking the court to declare their marriage void from the beginning, as though the vows spoken in Hartleigh's chapel, the ring on her hand, and the 11 nights during which she had learned the rhythm of his breathing had never existed. On what ground? She asked. Her voice sounded steady. Her fingers did not. They had tightened around the edge of the tablecloth until the damask cut into her skin. Mr. Brough opened his case. A prior marriage, madam. The dowager's mouth curved without becoming a smile. Marcus placed a folded paper beside the petition. A certified entry from a parish register near Gretna. It records the marriage of Isobel Merritt to Thomas Dale in February of 1864. For a moment, the only sound was the small hiss of rain in the chimney. I have never been to Gretna. The man has identified you. Then the man has lied. He possesses letters in your hand. Marcus. Isobel rose. The chair legs scraped the floor, harsh enough to make Mr. Brough blink. Look at me, he did. That was worse. For a few seconds, she saw the man who had once crossed a muddy orchard to bring medicine to her ailing father. She saw the man who had sat beside her in Lady Agatha's library, and confessed that the Abbey felt less like a home than a monument he had been sentenced to maintain. He had asked Isobel to marry him without a witness, without calculation, and with such naked hope that she had forgotten the distance between a duke and a physician's daughter. That man was still somewhere behind his cold grey eyes. He simply did not believe her. You know where I lived in 1864, she said. You visited of my father's house. His patients knew me. The churchwardens knew me. Half of Dorset could swear I had never crossed the border, and yet a register bears your name. Names can be written. Letters bear your hand. Hands can be copied. The dowager moved to the hearth. A jet mourning brooch rested at her throat, black and polished as an eye. Do not make this uglier than it must be. Sign the undertaking. Leave quietly. His Grace will provide an allowance. Isobel ignored her. Where is Thomas Dale? In London, Mr. Brough said. Then bring him here. That will be a matter for the court. No, it is a matter for this room. A stranger says I was his wife, and my husband places his word above mine without allowing me to see his face. Marcus flinched at the word husband. It was slight, but she saw it. The evidence has been examined, he said. By whom? By Brough. Isobel turned toward the solicitor. He smelled faintly of violets, an odd sweetness beneath the leather and damp. Violet sealing wax marked each document protruding from his case. The man your family has paid for 27 years, she said. Mr. Brough's cheeks tightened. My service is not evidence of dishonesty, nor is poverty evidence of bigamy. Marcus stepped closer. For the first time, anger broke through his control. "This is not about poverty." The man described a scar beneath your left shoulder. Her breath stopped. At 16, Isobel had pulled a stable boy away from a kitchen fire. A falling hook had cut her shoulder. Very few people knew. Her father had treated it. Her late mother had dressed it. Lady Agatha's maid had once helped Isobel change a damp gown after a carriage wheel broke in a storm. And Marcus had kissed that scar on their 4th night as husband and wife. "Who told him?" she whispered. No one answered. The dowager lifted the poker and disturbed the fire. Sparks rose between them. "Must we hear every sordid detail?" Isobel watched her too carefully for the remark to pass unnoticed. Augusta knew about the scar. Lady Agatha's former maid now served in the dowager's rooms. A thread appeared in the darkness, fine as silk and just as easy to break. "Give me 1 week," Isobel said. "Keep me here. Lock every door if you wish. Send a man to Dorset. Let him ask the parish rector where I stood every Sunday of that year." Marcus's jaw hardened. "I cannot conceal this while you construct an answer." "Construct?" 11 days were enough. Isobel. The sentence struck more cleanly than a slap. He continued because stopping would have required him to feel what he had done. 11 days were enough to discover what sort of woman I married. She looked down at the gold ring on her finger. It had belonged to Marcus's grandmother. He had warmed it in his palm before sliding it over her knuckle in the chapel. Now Isobel pulled it free. The narrow band caught against her skin and left a pale circle behind. She placed it on the petition. "No," she said. 11 days were enough to discover what sort of man married me." The dowager inhaled sharply. Mr. Brough found an urgent interest in the buckle of his case. Marcus did not move. Isobel crossed the room and stopped before him. She wanted him to remember her face, not the accusation attached to it. She wanted him to see the woman who had trusted him when trust offered her no advantage at all. "I will not accept an allowance. I will not sign a confession." And when your certainty begins to rot inside you, do not comfort yourself by saying that I left because I was guilty. You are sending me away. His gloved hand flexed once at his side. "The carriage will be ready at noon," he said. Isobel went upstairs with no one beside her. Her trunks had already been brought from the dressing room. The dowager's housekeeper, Mrs. Fenn, stood near them with red-rimmed eyes. A lady's maid had spread Isobel's gowns across the bed, separating what had belonged to Miss Merritt from what had been purchased for the Duchess of Hartleigh. There was very little in the first pile. "Her Grace ordered that the emeralds remain," the maid murmured. "They are hers." Isobel touched the grey wool dress she had worn on the day Marcus proposed. "Pack this one." Mrs. Fenn waited until the maid carried a box into the adjoining room. Then she pressed a small parcel into Isobel's hands. Inside lay bread, a wedge of cheese, and 6 sovereigns. "I cannot take your money. It is mine to give." Mrs. Fenn's chin trembled. "And I know you were never in Scotland." Knowing and proving are different creatures. His Grace will come to his senses. Isobel folded the paper over the bread. "He has chosen his senses over me." At noon, no ducal carriage waited at the front steps. The dowager had ordered an estate gig, the sort used to carry linen and servants to the station. Cold rain collected in the hollows of its leather seat. Marcus stood behind the library window. Isobel saw him through the rippled glass as Mrs. Fenn tucked a blanket around her knees. He could have raised one hand. He could have opened the window. He could have delayed the petition until a single witness from Dorset arrived. He did none of those things. The gig rolled down the long drive. Hartleigh's chapel bell struck 12, each note following her through the bare trees. Isobel did not turn around again. The court took 7 months to accomplish what Marcus had begun on the 11th day. By then, the gossip had done its work. London drawing rooms called Isobel a bigamist, an adventuress, and the physician's daughter who had tried to steal a coronet. Newspapers avoided her full name, but printed enough details for every reader to supply it. A caricature showed a woman wearing 2 wedding rings and reaching for a duke's purse with both hands. Isobel's father had died before her wedding. His small house and unpaid accounts had left her £63. Most of it vanished into legal fees. Her barrister obtained statements from Dorset, proving she had lived there throughout 1864. But Mr. Brough produced Thomas Dale in court. Dale was broad-shouldered, sandy-haired, and careful not to meet her eyes. He swore that they had married in a Scottish parish after a journey north. He described her scar. He produced 3 love letters signed Isobel Merritt. When her counsel asked him to name her father's profession, he answered correctly. When asked the colour of the gate at her childhood home, he said green. It had been green. Someone had prepared him well. The certified extract from the Scottish Register carried an official stamp. The court could not determine who had written lies into old paper. It could only weigh what stood before it. In June of 1867, it declared Isobel's marriage to Marquis null on the ground that she had already possessed a living husband. The decree did not call her a liar. Society did that without legal assistance. Outside the court, Marquis waited beneath a stone arch while his solicitor spoke to reporters. 7 months had thinned his face. For one reckless instant, Isobel thought he had come to tell her that the evidence no longer felt true. He took one step toward her. Isobel, she continued past him. Mrs. Pritchard, her landlady in Bloomsbury, had placed her trunk in the hall by the time she returned. I run a respectable house, the woman said, avoiding Isobel's gaze. The other lodgers have complained. My rent is paid through Saturday. You may take back 2 days. Isobel counted the coins. Mrs. Pritchard dropped into her palm. She had learned that humiliation often arrived in small sums. That evening, she sat at a tea shop near Holborn, with her trunk beside the table and 4 shillings remaining. Steam clouded the window. Clerks hurried through the rain, carrying document cases beneath their coats. One of them left a newspaper on the next chair. An advertisement near the bottom of the page requested a copyist with an exact hand and knowledge of household accounts. Women were not invited to apply. Isobel folded the page and went anyway. Harbury and Company occupied 3 narrow rooms above a banker's office in Lombard Street. Brass scales stood on the front desk. Shelves held deed boxes, maps, and blue paper packets tied with red tape. The air smelled of dust, iron ink, and sealing wafers. Mr. Amos, Harbury, looked over his spectacles when Isobel entered. He was a widower of 58 with silver whiskers and the impatient expression of a man who considered unnecessary conversation a form of theft. The post is for a gentleman. The figures will not know the difference. His clerk choked on a laugh and turned it into a cough. Mr. Harbury did not smile. He placed a rent roll before her. Add the final column. Isobel removed her gloves. The numbers swam for one moment because she had eaten nothing since morning. She steadied them, added each line, and found the stated total wrong by £17.09. The final column is false, she said. Your arithmetic. The clerk carried a 7 as a 1 on the 4th page. He also entered the same roof repair twice. Mr. Harbury took the pages back. 5 silent minutes passed. Can you begin tomorrow? I can begin now. He studied her plain dress, her damp boots, and the trunk visible through the open door. Mrs. Webb keeps rooms over the apothecary in Cheapside. Tell her I sent you. You will be paid 18 shillings a week. It was less than the young male clerk earned. It was more than Isobel possessed. Thank you. Do not thank me. Find the other false total. There was another. By midnight, Isobel had found 3. Work gave her what sympathy could not. It gave each hour a shape. At first, Mr. Harbury allowed her to copy letters and check columns. Within 6 months, he was asking her opinion before renewing farm leases. Within a year, she knew which railway shares in his client's marriage settlements paid regular dividends, which trustees neglected repairs on cottages they had never visited, and which respectable gentlemen disguised gambling debts as improvements to family land. She also learned that a trust was not a treasure chest, waiting for the boldest hand. It was a promise made in law. A trustee could not treat a child's capital as a loan to friends or rescue money for a failing relation. Every shilling had to serve the person for whom it had been set aside. Mr. Harbury tested that principle one winter morning by placing a draft before her. "My cousin wants £5,000 from the Bell settlement," he said. "He offers 6%. Isobel read the security. His land is already mortgaged twice. He is family. The Bell children are not." Mr. Harbury leaned back. His stare had made experienced clerks forget their own names. "Isobel," returned the draft. "If you wished for agreement, sir, you should not have asked for judgment." The corner of his mouth moved. "Tear it up." That afternoon he raised her wages. There was another reason. Isobel remained in Lombard Street long after she could have found gentler employment. Mr. Harbury's daughter, Rose, lived in the rooms above the office. Rose had been 2 when her mother died, and nearly 3 when Isobel first heard her crying behind a green baize door. The nurse had gone to fetch a doctor. Mr. Harbury stood helplessly beside the child's bed, while she burned with fever and rejected every spoonful of willow bark mixture. Isobel sat beside her, cooled her wrists with damp linen, and told her a story about a sparrow who kept accounts for the King of Winter. Rose swallowed the medicine to discover whether the sparrow found a missing silver penny. The next night she asked for another story. By the next spring, Rose called Isobel Merry, because Merritt defeated her small tongue. Mr. Harbury pretended not to notice when his daughter escaped the nursery to sit under Isobel's desk with a wooden horse. Isobel never told the child that the name healed something in her. Hartley had taught her how swiftly a title could be removed. Rose gave her a name no court had touched. In Wiltshire, Marcus discovered that an annulled marriage did not restore the life he had possessed before it. His mother reopened Hartley to guests within a month of the decree. Lady Cecily Montfort arrived with 12 trunks, a French maid, and a marriage portion that the dowager praised loudly enough for the servants to repeat. Cecily was beautiful in the exact manner society rewarded: pale, composed, and never inconvenienced by another person's pain. At dinner on her second evening, she complained that cottages near the West Drive spoiled the view from her carriage. "Move the families to Lower Fen," she said. "No one will see them there." Marcus looked across the table. "Lower Fen floods every February. Then they must learn to swim." The dowager laughed. Marcus heard Isobel's voice instead. "Nor is poverty evidence of bigamy." He ended the proposed match 3 days later. It was not courage. Courage would have required him to find Isobel, reopen the evidence, and admit that certainty had failed him. Refusing Cecily merely spared him a second loveless mistake. He spent the next 5 years at Hartley, working harder and understanding less. Harvests failed. The railway shares purchased by his late father fell. Roofs leaked in the north wing, cottages sagged, and each repair seemed to produce 2 new accounts from Mr. Bro's estate office. Marcus sold a yacht, then a team of carriage horses. The debts continued to grow. Every year on the 19th of November, he opened the drawer where he kept Isobel's ring. Every year he closed it again, once. In 1869, he sent an investigator to Scotland, without telling his mother or Bruh. The man returned with a copy of the same register entry and news that Thomas Dale had gone to France. Marcus told himself the failed inquiry proved the court had been right. It did not explain why relief never came. In London, Isobel's name slowly ceased to be useful gossip. She did not attempt to return to society. She attended lectures on sanitation, visited properties held for Harbury clients, and learned to read the health of an estate in its smallest details. A dry drawing room could conceal a village of damp walls. A polished carriage could be paid for by 6 families waiting for wages. She turned 30 in March of 1872. Rose, now 8, presented her with a purse she had stitched in crooked blue squares. "For all your sovereigns," the child announced. "I own 3. then there is room for improvement. Mr. Hartleigh laughed so violently that his spectacles slipped down his nose. 2 weeks later, he collapsed beside the office fire. The physician called it apoplexy. By dawn, the man who had given Isobel a desk when the rest of London would not give her a room was dead. Rose sat on the stairs in her nightdress, while clerks moved through the rooms below. Isobel knelt and held her. The child did not cry until she asked who would tell her stories now. "I will," Isobel said, "but where shall I live?" "With me, if the law permits it." The law, it transpired, had already been asked. Amos Hartleigh's will appointed Sir Owen Penfield, a chancery barrister, as trustee of his daughter's fortune. It appointed Isobel Merritt guardian of Rose's person, and required her written consent before any change could be made to the principal investments until Rose reached 21. The estate was worth £312,000. When the amount was read, Isobel felt no triumph. She felt the weight of Rose's sleeping head against her shoulder and understood exactly why Amos had made the distinction. The fortune did not belong to the guardian. The guardian belonged to the duty. Sir Owen met Isobel in the office 10 days after the funeral. He was a narrow, courteous man with a habit of folding his hands before saying anything unpleasant. "Mr. Hartleigh trusted your conscience," he said. "I have examined his memoranda. I believe he was correct to do so. There is a qualification hidden in that compliment. There is a problem hidden in the mortgage book." He placed a packet on the desk. Hartleigh Estates. Principal outstanding, £184,000. Isobel read the figure twice. Hartleigh and Company had purchased the first mortgage on Marcus's Wiltshire properties 4 years earlier. Interest had gone unpaid for 11 months. A covenant permitted the mortgagee to take possession or force a sale if arrears remained after midsummer. Midsummer was 7 weeks away. "Did Mr. Hartleigh know my connection to Hartleigh?" she asked. "He knew everything printed about your case. He also knew you never discussed it. Why did he purchase the mortgage?" "It was sound security when purchased. It may still be sound if the estate accounts are truthful." Sir Owen paused. "They do not appear truthful." Isobel turned the pages. Roof repairs had doubled in cost. Timber revenue had vanished. 3 farms were listed as vacant, though she remembered families who had held them for generations. "What does the Duke request?" "A 5-year extension and an additional advance of £30,000. On this evidence. He claims the advance will prevent foreclosures by smaller creditors and fund drainage improvements." "Who prepared the figures?" Sir Owen tapped one signature, Silas Bra. The smell of violet wax returned so sharply that Isobel could almost taste it. "If we refuse, the trust must enforce its security. Hartleigh may be sold in parcels. Rose's capital will probably be recovered, but 263 tenant households will pass to whichever purchasers bid highest. And if we agree without inspection, we may place a child's fortune into a failing estate." "Precisely." Sir Owen slid a railway timetable across the desk. "The Duke has invited the trustees to Hartleigh. I can send my junior." Isobel looked at the mortgage packet, then through the glass partition at Rose. The child sat at Amos Hartleigh's old desk, carefully sorting red and blue sealing wafers into separate boxes. 6 years earlier, Isobel had left Hartleigh with a parcel of bread beneath a borrowed blanket. Now a legal instrument bearing the seal of Chancery had placed its future beneath her hand. Power offered temptation in the same voice as justice. She knew that. It would be easy to refuse Marcus, call the mortgage, and name the result prudence. It would also uproot hundreds of people who had played no part in her humiliation. "Your junior has never seen the West Cottages after rain," she said. Sir Owen's brows rose. "I have. Rose and I will go." Hartleigh Abbey appeared at the end of the drive beneath a sky the colour of pewter. It was May now, not November, but recent rain had darkened the trunks of the beeches and filled the ruts with brown water. Isobel sat straight in the hired carriage. Beside her, Rose pressed both palms to the glass. Is that a castle? An abbey. It has battlements. Many buildings pretend to be grander than they are. Rose considered this. Do people do that? Frequently, Sir Owen hid a smile behind his hand. They had nearly reached the steps when the great doors opened. Marcus came outside without a hat. Isobel had prepared for age, coldness, and contempt. She had not prepared for the white streak at his right temple or the exhaustion carved around his mouth. He looked broader than she remembered and less invulnerable. The man who had once seemed built from the same stone as Hartleigh now looked as though the building had been feeding upon him. He stopped 3 paces from the carriage. The footman opened the door. Sir Owen descended first, then Rose. Isobel placed one gloved hand on the frame and stepped onto the gravel. Marcus stared at her. Isobel, Miss Merritt, she said. I am here on behalf of Miss Rose Harbury. Rose made a small curtsy. Marcus bowed as solemnly as if she were a queen. Miss Harbury, welcome to Hartleigh. Are you the Duke who owes me money? Rose asked. Sir Owen coughed. For the first time in 6 years, Isobel saw Marcus almost smile. I am afraid I am. Mr. Penfield says it is a very great deal. Mr. Penfield is correct. Rose slipped her hand into Isabel's. Mary says owing money is not a sin. Hiding where it went is. The smile vanished. Mary is correct as well. Behind him, Augusta appeared in the doorway. The dowager had aged with discipline. Her back remained straight, her silver hair arranged beneath a lace cap, her black silk fitted without a crease. Only her hands betrayed her. At the sight of Isobel, they closed around the head of her cane. You cannot mean to admit that woman, she said. Marcus did not turn. That woman holds the consent without which Hartleigh will be sold. Then receive her in the estate office. Isobel gave the dowager the same shallow curtsy she would have offered any elderly stranger. The trust's security includes the abbey, the farms, and every structure named in the mortgage schedule. I shall inspect all of them. You presume upon a clerical appointment. Sir Owen unfolded the document he carried. The red seal hung from its lower edge. The appointment was confirmed by the Court of Chancery, Your Grace. Miss Merritt is guardian to the beneficiary, and the trust cannot alter its principal investments without her written consent. Nothing is presumed. Augusta's gaze dropped to the seal. For one bare second, fear moved across her face. Isobel saw it. So did Marcus. He stepped aside from the door. Prepare the blue rooms for Miss Merritt, Miss Harbury, and Sir Owen. The blue rooms were mine, Isobel said. Marcus's voice lowered. I remember. Then give us the east rooms. I have no wish to sleep among ghosts. Mrs. Fenn was waiting in the entrance hall. Her hair had gone almost entirely white. She took one look at Isobel and forgot every rule of ducal service. She crossed the marble floor and caught both of Isobel's hands. I knew, she whispered. I knew you would come back with your head high. Isobel kissed her cheek. You gave me 6 sovereigns. They kept it high until I found work. The dowager struck her cane once against the floor. The sound silenced the servants, but it did not separate the women. By dinner, Isobel had requested 6 years of rent rolls, timber contracts, wage books, repair vouchers, and correspondence with every secured creditor. Mr. Bruck arrived from the estate office, carrying 2 deed boxes and the same courteous expression he had worn on the morning of her ruin. His hair had thinned. The scent of violets had not. Miss Merritt, he said. What an extraordinary turn of fortune. Fortune has not turned, Mr. Brough. It belongs to an 8-year-old girl. I am here to keep it facing in the proper direction. His eyes toward Rose, who was building a castle from account books at the far end of the library. Surely, such matters need not trouble a child's guardian. They trouble her, precisely because I am a guardian. Isobel opened the first box. The top bundle contained invoices for repairs to 7 tenant roofs. Each bore a contractor's mark and Brough's approval. She had passed 3 of those cottages that afternoon. 2 roofs were covered by rotting thatch. 1 cottage had no roof at all. Who is Edwin Pike? She asked. A builder in Salisbury. He has received £4,000 in 3 years. Hartleigh is expensive to maintain. Does Mr. Pike exist? Bruss's smile remained. A bead of moisture appeared beside his nose. Marcus stood near the cold fireplace, watching both of them. Answer her, he said. Of course he exists. Isobel closed the invoice bundle. Good. We shall visit him tomorrow. Mr. Bruss's bead of moisture slid down his cheek. He had ruined her with papers. Now, he was afraid she knew how to read them. Edwin Pike did not exist. The address on his invoices belonged to a narrow stationer's shop in Salisbury. Its proprietor had traded there for 19 years and had never heard the name. The bank named on the receipts had closed before the first payment was supposedly made. By the end of the week, Isobel had identified £11,000 paid to Pike and 2 other imaginary contractors. Timber had been sold below market price to a company registered by Mr. Bro's brother-in-law. Rent collected from tenant farms had reached the estate office and disappeared before entering the bank. The losses were serious. The neglect they concealed was worse. Isobel inspected the West cottages on a wet Tuesday. Marcus accompanied her, though she had not asked him to. Rose remained at the Abbey with Mrs. Fenn and Sir Owen. At Lowerfield, Mrs. Cobb showed them a bedroom where rain ran down the wall behind a child's cot. The estate books recorded a new slate roof fitted 18 months earlier. Marcus pressed 2 fingers against the plaster. They came away wet and grey. Why was I not told? He asked. Mrs. Cobb glanced toward Isobel before answering. His lordship's agent said another complaint would cost my husband the tenancy. Bruff said that? Mr. Lyle, sir, he said. Mr. Braw had ordered it. The child in the cot began to cough. It was a deep, damp sound from a body too small to carry it. Isobel lifted the blanket from one corner of the mattress. Black mould marked the ticking beneath. The family cannot sleep here tonight, she said. Marcus turned to his steward. Open the old schoolhouse. Move every family from this row before dark. Send for slates from Devizes and hire the men directly. No invoice passes through Bruff. The steward hesitated. The expense, your grace. Sell my hunters. Isobel looked at him. Marcus met her gaze. The horses have dry roofs. It was the first thing he had done. That did not feel like performance or pride. It was not enough. They continued on foot because the lane had become too deep for the carriage. Rain spotted Isobel's bonnet and darkened the shoulders of Marcus's coat. Once, at a broken stile, he offered his hand. She climbed without it. You need not prove you can cross alone, he said. I proved that 6 years ago. He lowered his hand. At the next cottage, a widow produced 3 notices of arrears, even though her rent book showed payment. At the smithy, the ironmaster said, Braw had ordered him to charge the estate twice and return half in cash. At Upper Fen, 30 acres of drainage tile had been purchased, but no trench had ever been cut. By noon, Marcus had stopped asking why no one told him. He began asking why he had not looked. They sheltered beneath the stone arch of an abandoned mill. Water turned the wheel in slow, useless groans. Isobel opened the packet of bread Mrs. Fenn had sent and divided it without comment. Marcus accepted 1 piece. I remember another parcel, he said. So do I. I did not know my mother ordered the gig. You knew I left in it. Rain drummed against the mill roof. He stared at the bread in his hand. There is no answer I can give that does not sound smaller than the injury. Then do not answer. Account for the estate, for yourself. Marcus walked to the edge of the arch. Beyond him, the fields blurred beneath the rain. When I married you, I believed I had finally chosen one thing for myself. I had spent my life being trained to suspect affection. My mother said every kindness toward me concealed a request. Every friendship wanted influence. Every woman wanted the title. And when a stranger confirmed her lesson, you were relieved to believe him. He turned. The truth on his face answered before his mouth did. Yes, he said. The lie was cruel. It was also convenient. Believing you required me to stand against my family, my solicitor, the court, and the habits of my entire life. Believing them required only a signature. Isobel's throat tightened. She had waited 6 years for honesty and discovered that honesty could not return what its absence had taken. You speak as though fear lessens the choice. No, it makes the choice more contemptible. He stepped into the rain before she could answer. That evening, Marcus suspended Silas Brough from the estate office. Brough received the order in the library while Isobel, Sir Owen, and the Dowager were present. He read it twice, placed it on the table, and smiled. You cannot dismiss 27 years of service because a former wife dislikes my arithmetic. Miss Merritt found £11,000 paid to men who do not exist, Marcus said. Preliminary names used by contractors, a common convenience. A dead bank is less convenient. The Dowager tapped her cane against the carpet. Silas has preserved this estate through difficulties you barely comprehend. Then he may explain his methods to an independent auditor. Brough's eyes moved to Isobel, and until then, she controls the books, the child, and the purse. You have always been susceptible to her performance, Hartleigh. Marcus crossed the space between them. You will address her as Miss Merritt. Or what? You will strike your solicitor in front of a barrister. No, Isobel said. He will allow the law to do something more lasting. She placed copies of the false invoices beside his suspension. Brough looked down at them. His smile finally failed. The original books are estate property, he said. They will remain here, Marcus replied. My private correspondence is not. Take what Sir Owen approves. Nothing else. Brough closed his case. The brass catches snapped like small pistol shots. You are placing your inheritance in the hands of a woman who once tried to acquire it by fraud. Isobel felt the old room rise around her. Wet wool, cold coffee, violet wax. Before Marcus could speak, Rose appeared in the doorway holding a wooden horse. Mary does not acquire inheritances, she said. She stops other people stealing them. Brough stared at the child. His expression lasted less than a heartbeat, but it contained calculation rather than embarrassment. Isobel crossed the room and drew Rose behind her. You were told to remain with Mrs. Fenn. I could not sleep. Go with Sir Owen now. Rose obeyed, though she looked back twice. Brough lifted his case. Good night, Miss Merritt. Your rooms and luggage will be searched before you leave. On what authority? Marcus took the keys of the estate office from the table. Mine. They found no stolen money in Brough's rooms. They found something more dangerous. On his desk stood a cast-iron copying press. Such presses were common in offices. A freshly written letter was placed against damp tissue paper, then squeezed beneath a screw until a faint duplicate of the ink remained. The copies were bound in thin volumes and kept as a record of outgoing correspondence. Most of Brough's copybooks had been removed. One remained behind a cabinet, its leather cover warped by damp. Several pages had been cut out. Isobel turned the translucent leaves while Marcus held a lamp behind them. Rent demands, timber orders, instructions to tradesmen. Nothing about the false contractors, nothing about Scotland. Then she noticed that 2 leaves clung together. She separated them carefully with a paper knife. The hidden tissue appeared blank until Marcus raised the lamp. A mirror-thin impression emerged in brown ink. Muster T. Dale, Rue des Bouchers, Calais. Isobel's pulse struck hard against her throat. The letter was dated 4 days before Thomas Dale testified in her nullity case. Our arrangement remains as agreed. You will answer only what has been rehearsed. The mark below her shoulder must be described as a burn rather than a cut. Upon decree, the remaining £200 will be remitted through Dover. Her Grace insists there must be no uncertainty. There was no signature. Brough's copying clerk had used initials, SB. Marcus read it once, then again. The lamp trembled in his hand. Her Grace, he said. Isobel did not soften the answer. Your mother. He set the lamp down before he dropped it. Sir Owen read the tissue, then folded his spectacles. This supports conspiracy and perjury. It does not by itself prove Miss Merritt never married Dale. We require the original register, the witness or evidence that the letters were fabricated. The love letters, Isobel said. The court retained them. They may still be in the file. Obtain them. Sir Owen nodded. I shall leave for London in the morning. Marcus stood very still. I will confront Broth. No, Isobel said, his head lifted. If he knows we found this, Dale disappears again. Your mother destroys whatever she holds. We proceed with evidence, not outrage. You ask me to sit at breakfast with the woman who did this to you. I sat at breakfast with the man who believed her. Marcus closed his eyes. She regretted the sentence only because regret wasted time. Sir Owen left for London at dawn. The same morning, Broth lodged a petition in Chancery seeking Isobel's removal as Rose's guardian. He accused her of moral unfitness, hostility toward a debtor, and an intention to sacrifice the Hartleigh fortune in order to control the Duke of Hartleigh. Attached to the petition were newspaper clippings from 1867 and a copy of the decree that had declared her marriage void for bigamy. The court ordered Isobel to answer within 14 days. If Broth succeeded, Rose would be placed with a court-approved guardian. Isobel would lose the child and the power to approve any arrangement involving the trust. Someone else could then be persuaded to advance the money Hartleigh needed without an audit, when Rose heard only that a judge might make her live elsewhere. She went silent. That night, Isobel found her asleep on the carpet outside the East Rooms, one hand curled around the hem of Isobel's dress, where it hung from a chair. Isobel lifted her into bed. No one is taking you without a fight, she whispered. Rose opened her eyes. Is that a promise? It is an undertaking. Is that stronger? Much stronger. The child went back to sleep. Isobel did not. 2 days later, Lady Cecily Montfort arrived at Hartleigh. She entered the morning room in pale green silk, carrying the fragrance of roses and London. Augusta greeted her with the first genuine warmth Isobel had seen from her. Marcus remained beside the mantel, his expression unreadable. Cecily has offered assistance, the Dowager announced. Lady Cecily removed one glove finger by finger. My brother's bank can settle the pressing creditors. There would be no need to entangle the estate with a child's trust. On what terms? Isobel asked. Cecily smiled at Marcus. The terms are a family matter. Then the offer has no bearing on my inspection. It has every bearing. Once Marcus and I are married, Hartleigh will have my settlement. The room became very quiet. Augusta turned toward her son. It is the only clean solution. Marcus looked at Cecily. Did you know the evidence against Isobel was manufactured? The question broke the Dowager's composure. This is neither the time nor place. It is the house purchased by the lie. It is precisely the place. Cecily's hand paused above her glove. I knew your mother had discovered an impediment. Before or after the wedding? She glanced at Augusta. That glance was enough. Marcus stepped away from the mantel. Leave Hartleigh. Do not be absurd, his mother said. Without Montfort money, the abbey will be sold. Then I will watch every stone auctioned before I purchase it with another woman's destruction. Cecily's face hardened. You rejected me once for a tradesman's daughter. Now you reject me for her ghost. Isobel rose. Do not mistake me for a ghost, Lady Cecily. Ghosts are denied a voice. I have spent 6 years acquiring one. Cecily's gaze swept over Isobel's plain dark gown. And what will you do with it? Make him beg? Take the abbey? Force him to marry you again? I will protect Rose's money. The difference between us is that I no longer confuse possession with victory. Lady Cecily turned to Marcus. When she ruins you, remember that pride prevented me from saving you. No, he said. Pride was what made me believe you 6 years ago. She left before luncheon. The Dowager did not come downstairs again that day. Marcus found Isobel in the old chapel near sunset. She had gone there to inspect a crack in the east wall listed among the estate repairs. Ivy had entered through the mortar. Dust covered the pew where they had signed the marriage register. The false ceremony had used a real chapel, real vows, and 2 people who had believed themselves bound. Its invalidity did not make the memory less exact. Marcus stood at the end of the aisle. "I should have brought Dale before you," he said. "I should have sent to Dorset. I should have asked why my mother knew about the scar." Isobel kept her attention on the broken plaster. "Yes, I loved you." Her control slipped then, not because the words were tender, but because they were cruel in a new way. "You do not get to place love beside what you did and call the balance even." "I know, do you? Love without trust is appetite. Love without courage is a room one person can lock from the outside." He looked toward the chapel door. "I locked it, and I built another life. Is there any part of that life in which I might someday earn a place?" Isobel faced him. "You are still asking what you may receive. Begin with what you owe." Marcus lowered his head. "Tell me the truth in public, whether Hartleigh survives or not, whether I forgive you or not. Restore the name you helped destroy without making my affection the price." "I will." Bootsteps sounded outside. Mrs. Fenn entered holding a telegram on a silver tray. It was from Sir Owen. "Court letters. Recovered. Stop. Paper watermark dated. 1866. Stop. 1864. Stop. Dover. Stop. Returning with witness before midsummer." For the first time, proof had arrived before punishment. Then a second telegram came. The holder of Hartleigh's largest unsecured debt had obtained judgment. Unless £32,000 was paid within 5 days, the Abbey's movable contents and breeding stock would be put up for auction at 4 o'clock on Midsummer Eve. The hearing on Isobel's guardianship was scheduled for the same morning, at 9 o'clock on Midsummer Eve. Isobel entered the Court of Chancery with Rose on one side and Sir Owen on the other. Silas Brough sat behind his counsel. He looked freshly shaved and perfectly composed. Newspapers had already printed his allegation that a notorious woman meant to use an orphan's money to purchase revenge upon a duke. The master heard Brough's counsel first. He spoke for 40 minutes about Isobel's disgrace, her emotional interest in Hartleigh, and the danger of leaving a great fortune beneath the influence of an embittered guardian. When he finished, Sir Owen rose. He presented Amos Harbury's memoranda describing Isobel's 6 years of work. He produced 23 trust decisions in which she had refused unsafe loans, including one requested by Harbury's own cousin. Then he laid the false love letters from 1864 beneath a magnifying glass. Each sheet bore the watermark of Pritchard Crown Bond. The manufacturer's representative testified that the design had first been registered in September of 1866, 2 years, and 7 months after the letters were supposedly written. Names could be written. Dates could not command paper to exist before it had been made. Thomas Dale was called last. He entered with a constable beside him. Time in Calais had bent his shoulders and reddened his eyes. He did not look at Isobel until the oath had been administered. Then he faced her. "I was never married to Miss Merritt," he said. The room seemed to draw one shared breath. Dale confessed that he had served as an under-footman at Hartleigh. Mr. Brough offered him £400 to claim a Scottish marriage, coached him with details taken from Isobel's letters, and arranged for a clerk to insert a false line into a neglected parish register. The dowager's maid supplied the description of Isobel's scar. Augusta herself attended one meeting behind a screen and insisted the lie be strong enough to survive cross-examination. Brough stood. "This witness is a confessed perjurer." The master looked down at him, a fact that does not improve the position of the man who purchased his perjury. The tissue copy from Brough's press was admitted. So were the bank drafts and the altered register page recovered by a Scottish sheriff. Before 11, the petition against Isobel had been dismissed. The court affirmed her guardianship, ordered Brough to pay the costs, and directed that the evidence be sent to the authorities for prosecution. Rose squeezed Isobel's hand. "Does that mean I may keep you?" Isobel knelt in the crowded court. "It means we keep each other. At Hartleigh, The auctioneer climbed onto a timber platform at 4 o'clock. Chairs, paintings, silver, carriages, and 31 horses had been marked with numbered cards. Tenants crowded the edge of the courtyard. Dealers from London examined the goods, while rain threatened above the abbey roof. Marcus stood at the foot of the steps with a written declaration in his hand. Augusta watched from the doorway. Her cane shook against the stone. The auctioneer lifted his hammer. Carriage wheels sounded beyond the gate. Isobel arrived with Rose, Sir Owen, and Thomas Dale. A second carriage brought an officer carrying the warrant for Silas Brough. Brough moved toward the stable passage. Marcus blocked him. "You should have taken the gig," Marcus said. "It is a difficult walk to the station in rain." The officer caught Brough's arm. Augusta descended 1 step. "Marcus, stop this. Whatever was done, it was done to preserve your inheritance. You destroyed my marriage to purchase Cecily's dowry. I preserved your name." Isobel crossed the courtyard. A name preserved by a lie is only a lie with a crest above it. The tenants had gone silent. Lady Augusta looked at their faces and understood that rank could no longer control the room. Marcus climbed onto the platform. He read his declaration aloud. He named Isobel Merritt innocent. He described the false testimony, the manufactured letters, and his own refusal to investigate. He did not blame youth, grief, his mother, or the court. 11 days were enough for me to condemn her, he said. 6 years have not been enough to excuse me. Miss Merritt owes this house nothing. Hartleigh owes her the truth, and so do I. He signed the declaration before the crowd and handed copies to the waiting reporters. Only then did Isobel open the document Sir Owen carried. The Harbury Trust would purchase the judgment debt and extend Hartleigh's first mortgage. The transaction gave Rose sound security over productive land at a fair rate of interest. It also imposed conditions. Marcus would sell his London house and remaining racing stock. An independent receiver would supervise the estate accounts. No tenant could be evicted for arrears falsely created by Brough. The West cottages, schoolhouse, and drainage works would be repaired before money was spent on the abbey. Marcus read every line. "Where do I sign?" Isobel pointed to the final page. He signed without bargaining. Sir Owen gave the auctioneer formal notice that the judgment had been satisfied. The numbered cards came off the horses, the paintings, and Mrs. Fenn's silver tea service. No hammer fell. Augusta stared at Isobel. "You have taken Hartleigh from us." "No, I have prevented you from taking Rose's fortune. Hartleigh will pay every pound it owes." The dowager's face seemed to collapse around the pride that had held it upright. Marcus stepped down from the platform. He stopped before Isobel, but did not reach for her. "Thank you," he said. "Do not thank me. Keep the terms." "I will." This time, he did. Silas Brough was convicted of forgery, conspiracy, perjury, and embezzlement. The false entry in Scotland was struck from the register, and the record of Isobel's nullity case was endorsed to show that the evidence against her had been fraudulent. The old decree had left Marcus and Isobel legally free. Clearing her name did not bind them together again. Augusta admitted her part in a sworn statement. She left Hartleigh for a small dower house near Bath, where her title still opened doors but no longer commanded anyone inside them. The London house was sold. So were Marcus's last racehorses and a collection of Dutch paintings his father had prized more than the cottages beneath them. By Michaelmas, every roof at Lower Field was dry. By spring, the drains at Upper Fen were carrying water away from the farms. Marcus kept accounts himself. When he did not understand a figure, he asked. When a tenant complained, he visited before Brough's old habits could answer in his place. He never asked Isobel to forgive him. That was why, slowly, she began to consider it. Rose remained at Hartleigh while Isobel supervised the Harbury investments. She claimed the schoolroom, befriended every groom, and taught Marcus the story of the sparrow, who kept accounts for the King of Winter. He supplied the missing silver penny with such a ridiculous French accent that Isobel laughed before she could stop herself. 18 months after the auction, Marcus met Isobel beside the restored mill. He carried no ancestral ring. In his palm lay a plain gold band purchased with his own income. "I cannot ask you to return to what we had," he said. "It was not strong enough to deserve returning to. I can only ask whether we might build something that neither fear nor title owns." Isobel looked at the repaired wheel turning steadily in the river. "Rose remains my first duty until she is of age. I would expect nothing less. I keep my work, my income, and my voice in every decision that concerns me. Yes, and if doubt enters our house again, it is questioned before it is believed." Marcus' eyes shone. "Especially then." She held out her hand. "Sir Owen drafted a marriage settlement, preserving Isobel's earnings, her guardianship, and her authority over every investment entrusted to her. Marcus signed it before she asked for the pen. They did not marry by a private license. Their banns were read on 3 successive Sundays before tenants, servants, and anyone else who cared to hear. Rose stood beside Isobel at the parish church. Mrs. Fenn wept without discretion. Sir Owen checked the register twice, and then, at Rose's insistence, checked it once more. On the 12th morning of their new marriage, Isobel and Marcus sat together at breakfast while rain touched the windows. No solicitor waited beside the door. No petition lay between them. Outside, the chapel bell counted 11 strokes, paused, and rang once more. "Thank you for staying with Isobel through every wound, every hard choice, and every step of her return." Her victory was not the fortune she guarded or the title she regained. It was the right to be believed, respected, and loved without surrendering herself. If this story moved you, please give the video a like so the algorithm can share it with more historical romance lovers. Send it to a friend who enjoys stories of betrayal, justice, and hard-earned second chances. Subscribe and turn on notifications for the next complete story. And tell me in the comments, could you have forgiven Marcus after 6 years? Or did Isobel give him more grace than he deserved?